They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You play any and every position. From coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh, my goodness. Let's see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you. But what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
Hey. What's up, fellas? Welcome to another edition of Earn Your Liberation right here on Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball, joined by brother Diallo Kenyatta, Geechee Yaw. Of course, you and the Remixers community. Welcome to everybody. What's up, fellas? How you feeling this morning?
Good morning.
Feeling cool. How are you?
I'm as good as could be
Yeah,
expected.
that sound better. More better.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta tell you, I ain't want to expose already, but me and Diallo was talking about you running for president back in the days. We saw your we saw your new your thing that you're running for, smiling. You're the only one smiling on the picture. Everybody else mean mugging.
Which picture is this?
Something you running for? You running for some kind of office or something? You was running.
You talking about now?
Yeah, now. But then he started talking about your presidency.
So was I the only one smiling? Let me
That's what he said. I ain't even pay attention, but
I don't gossip behind people's backs.
You can't be listening to Diallo, man. So
I don't gossip behind people's backs.
Yeah. Let's see. So we got the updated flyer just this morning, in fact.
The updated. What you running for though, man? What you about to do?
So I'm running for the Hickory Ridge Village Board here in Columbia, Maryland. So Columbia is made up of all these different quote unquote villages, and we are the initial political level, and then above us is the Columbia Association, and then you go up into all of the, whatever. So this is our slate that has been put together. The six of us are trying to represent an anti-corporate, anti-contractor defense of the community. And so this is, we just they added the QR code to take everybody to our, affordable neighborhoods, residential control over our village center, transparency, community over developer profits. So this is what we're loosely organizing or trying to so my second foray into electoral politics. And then always we got to be clear, just to be technically correct, because that's what we do here on EYL. I was running for the Green Party nomination, not actually for president yet. And then I happily stepped aside to support Cynthia McKinney and Rosa Clemente. And folks, please check out the conversation I had with Rosa yesterday, by the way.
So real quick, so Avi just emailed me and said that it says that the host is requiring that you come through YouTube or Facebook.
I know. I see. I get it. I get it. I just don't know what to do about that. So all I know is that StreamYard has updated an option which is supposed to allow you to stream to other people's platforms if you want. And apparently now that's making them have to log in to a YouTube or Facebook channel just to come on as a guest. I'm not sure. You could ask her to come into the then she would have to log into YouTube too to come into the chat. I don't know what to say about that. Ask her to create a fake Google account real quick, and if she doesn't have a Google account or if she doesn't have a Facebook account, ask her to create a fake YouTube or Gmail account and log in that way. I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't know what to do about that. I don't have it. We were or are endeavoring, by the way, to talk to Aviva Chomsky about some of her work. We were reading. I was at least reading one of her chapters on Black worker in Boston. It's fascinating. So I was hoping we could, And then I'm actually more fascinated, I have to admit, about how you've come to know her, Geechee. I just can't help but think that's it was like it's like an odd. It seems like an odd. I don't know, but I don't know. So anyway, I was more interested in that almost. Although the work seems is fascinating.
We can start there. So I met her when I was in college. Actually, I just graduated college. I was in Eastern Kentucky. I was working with a grassroots radio station, so I was doing some journalism, and I was also organizing with a group called Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, who work on like different labor issues and coal mining issues. And she came in from Salem University to take a delegation of us to Columbia, where she was. She's been working there for a long time, I guess, and she takes a lot of delegations there. So she took some delegations to Columbia to kind of like connect us with people who are organizing there and in communities that's being disenfranchised, displaced, and pretty much murdered by coal companies. And so for one of the coal companies was this guy named Gary Drummond, who was from Alabama. He has like a couple coal mines there in Colombia. And so we met Afro-Colombian people. I got this mochila from some Afro-Colombian people. I mean, this was in 2008, so to me it still looked brand new. And just spend a while there, just kind of like connected with them. And yeah, that was pretty much it, how I got to connect with her.
So StreamYard Assistance is saying that I can turn off the authentication for guests, go to broadcast studio settings. All right. Guests turn off. Okay, she should be able to do it now. She should be able to just log in. Give her the whatchamacallit again, the link.
All right.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, they're really responsive. I was just talking to one earlier about something else, but yeah.
Well, they should be. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you run a virtual platform and you charge us a bunch of money to access it. You know what I'm saying? Be available. You know what I'm saying? Let's not get, I mean, it's not chat it up. No, but thanks, Sam. Anyway. Thank you, Ross. And definitely hit that like button. Let me ask the remixer something real quick, because I feel like my bad. Go ahead. What
no, real quick, let me clear something. So I wasn't in Alabama. The Gary Drummond who owned the coal mine, he's from Alabama. But there was something pretty interesting that they did, because, and Avi can probably correct me on this. So Gary Drummond and his staff, they would literally like pick people up from communities, indigenous communities, and drop them off in a different place in the country, right? Like pretty much kidnap and displace them, and other ways of displacing people. But I think Avi them organized something to where they got a group of people from Colombia that was displaced and flew them to Alabama and had them camp out on Gary Drummond's lawn.
Oh, wow.
So I think that happened. I remember talking about it, but that was so long ago, so we can check and see if that was accurate. But I remember it was something like that. So I've never been to Alabama, but Gary Drummond, who's now deceased, and I think his son still runs the company, he was from Alabama. Pretty wealthy guy.
Wow.
From he died a few years ago. Yep. But go ahead, my bad.
No. That's I was really just wanting to, and we can come back to that later because our guest is here. I don't like to waste their time. So I'll turn it over to you. You can do any introduction and we can get busy. We can come back to the silly list later. You're muted, Geechee.
Sorry. As y'all can remember, we had a conversation the other day and was talking about different radical people on the left, white people that we enjoy. We talk about Kamal saying, Noam Chomsky's his favorite. All of us were saying, we like Parenti. And then I made a comment. I was like, well, I really like Avi Chomsky, Norm's daughter. I met her and all the experience I had with her was pretty pleasant. And I saw her and felt her doing the real work. So I told you I would reach out to her to see if we can get her on, to kind of see what she was doing. I actually haven't talked to her in, I don't know, since 2008. So I wanted to kind of check in with her again. So we brought her on and we'll bring her backstage. She's actually, I think, still professor at Salem University, but I'll let her introduce herself and kind of tell her what she's doing. So thank you.
Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Good morning. And thanks for helping me navigate getting into the room.
No, that was our fault. Apologies for that. I had to catch up to the new settings, and so sorry about that, and glad we could work it out.
So yes, I am still teaching at Salem State University here in Massachusetts. I teach Latin American history, US Latino history, histories of colonialism, indigenous histories of the Americas, race and racism in the Americas, kind of like an Americas beyond the United States focus for a lot of my classes. And I work on a lot of different issues. I published a book last year called Is Science Enough? 40 Critical Questions About Climate Justice. And the year before, a book on Central America's Forgotten History, Revolution, Violence, and the Roots of Migration. I do a lot of work on immigration and climate justice, which is related to immigration. And I'm working now on a new book, which is not really ready to be, it's not going to be out for a while because it's still in kind of, the middle stages, I would say, on Colombia and fossil fuels and indigenous peoples, indigenous movements, which is probably more connected to how I met you down in Kentucky, is working on coal. But I've been working for like 20 years now with indigenous and Afro-descended communities affected and displaced by coal mining in Colombia, and thinking about the kind of bigger issues because the coal is exported to the US and Europe, and how, we often say that the people who've contributed the least to climate change are those who are suffering the most, because in that region where the coal mine is, people don't have electricity. But the electricity, the coal is going to nourish the lifestyles of people in Europe and the United States, who are the ones who cause climate change. But I've actually been thinking that we need to reframe that just a little bit, because in fact, the people of La Guajira, they don't get any of the benefits of the coal that's extracted, but it's not quite right to say that they don't contribute anything, because they have sacrificed everything in order to help people in the first world cause climate change. Not voluntarily, but that is them being the victims of climate change has to do with the extraction of fossil fuels from their lands, not only then the impact of our use of fossil fuels.
Right. Absolutely. So actually, I before you got on, I was showing them the bag that I got from the La Guajira region, and it was in 2008, and I literally use this bag every day. I carry my books in it, and it's still holding together. And then also I wanted to tell Jared, it was a surprise. So Jared is a professor at Morgan State. He's pretty radical. and they probably gonna get rid of him. So I wanted to introduce him to you. So just in case, you might have to give him a job or help him out. so I wanted to do that too. But definitely. So one of the things I've listened to, and I'll let them ask questions as they will. I think it was an interview that you had on another show about Is Science Enough? And you was kind of talking about this idea of clean coal. And I actually remember when Bill Clinton came to Pikeville, Eastern Kentucky, and he was trying to advocate for his wife to be president. He made a couple crazy comments, but one of the most craziest comments he made, he's like, you know why we can't stop burning coal? It's because China is burning this much coal per minute. And I'm like, are we in a burning coal race? And so could you talk about like this idea of clean coal, clean energy, but also the work that you're still doing? I do know Gary Drummond has transitioned. You know, people are celebrating that, I'm sure. But his son is still running the coal company in some fashion. So kind of give me an update on what's going on there, and then, you know, talking to the clean coal or clean energy.
Okay, great, because I actually spent all day yesterday at the American Society for Environmental History conference in Boston. And there was a lot of talk about clean energy at that conference that made me really nervous. But I'll tell you why. And I want to separate the two issues, clean coal from clean energy, although they're related, obviously. So like the idea of clean coal is that we are in the process of creating technologies that are not really fully available yet that will capture some of the emissions when coal is burned. So it's called carbon capture, carbon capture and storage, CCS, or carbon capture utilization and storage, CCUS. So then what do you do with all the CO2 after you, so the idea is to burn coal, but to keep the CO2 from getting into the atmosphere and thus contributing to climate catastrophe or global warming. So then what do you do with the carbon after you capture it? The idea is that you are going to build pipelines and transport it through pipelines to someplace where you can bury it deep underground. Now, if this is sounding like a very energy intensive process, you're thinking more than some of our political leaders are thinking, because yes, it's an extremely energy intensive process to capture carbon. Where exactly are we all going to put it? Like, what cities and towns are going to have to be displaced in order to create these huge underground storage areas? What areas are going to have to be deforested in order to create these huge underground storage areas? And can this even be done? And how much will it cost? It's kind of a fantasy developed by the fossil fuel industry to try to keep people on board with burning more fossil fuels rather than looking for alternatives. So I will start out by saying there is, and of course, you know, you guys in Kentucky are very intimately aware of what happens when you mine coal, the communities that are affected, the air, the land, the water, through the coal mining. So if we're going to have clean coal, that's going to mean we're going to do more coal mining. So yeah, I think that clean coal is really a fantasy. But what about clean energy? So nobody at my conference yesterday was talking about clean coal. Like, everybody there knew that clean coal is a joke. But clean energy, people were talking a lot about clean energy at the conference. And when people talk about clean energy, it's a kind of undefined term. So usually what people have in mind is energy that doesn't cause CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions, because CO2 is only one of several different greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming that accumulate in the atmosphere. And some of the others, like methane, nitrous oxide, actually are much more potent in terms of how much they contribute to global warming. So this is a big issue with natural gas, which I put in quotes because I believe we should stop calling it natural gas. That's kind of a greenwashing term. It makes it look natural. Well, in a sense, everything is natural, right? Except, supernatural things. But calling it natural gas somehow makes it sound cleaner than it is. And it's true that methane gas, which is the politically correct way to refer to it, but nobody knows what you mean when you say methane gas yet. We're working on changing that language. Methane gas, when it's burned, produces less CO2 than does coal, but it produces more methane, because that's basically what it is, which is actually much worse in terms of its impact on climate change than CO2 is. So calling, and also a lot of methane leaks during the process of extracting and transporting methane gas. So what do we mean when we say clean energy? Are we referring to methane gas? Most people, the utilities industries and the gas industry call methane gas a form of clean energy, but it's clearly a fossil fuel. And most people at my conference anyway, do not include methane gas or natural gas when talking about clean energy. There wasn't actually anyone at the conference, but there were quite a few books at the book exhibit that were about nuclear energy and talking about nuclear energy as a clean source of energy, because nuclear energy also produces, well, not also, nuclear energy does not produce greenhouse gas emissions. But as anybody with a brain knows, nuclear energy produces a lot of other toxic waste. So I feel like it's really quite a stretch to call nuclear energy a clean form of energy. And we have no way of dealing with nuclear waste. Again, there's this fantasy that someday we'll figure out what to do with radioactive waste, but right now we don't know. So it's just accumulating. So, okay, what about hydropower?
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but where is it accumulating? Where is all of this waste kept?
So all of this waste is, you can imagine that it's not kept in wealthy white neighborhoods.
Oh.
Did you guess that?
Shocking. I was expecting you were going to say it's like, in Beverly Hills and Potomac, Maryland. And no, I'm just playing.
No, nuclear waste disposal is a clear environmental justice issue, because like all toxic waste, and really like all waste, all industrial waste and all residential waste, it's kept in places where people are powerless, because where people have political power, they refuse to have waste dumps in their backyards. So it's a very clear nationwide and global pattern that the powerful want to inflict their waste on the powerless. And this is a racial issue, it's a colonial issue, it's a global issue and a national issue. But that's basically what the definition of environmental justice is. That is, environmental justice communities are communities that have had toxins imposed on them because they have been constructed over the course of 500 years of European colonialism. They have been deprived of power. And power means economic power, it means political power. So people who have been conquered, people who have been displaced, people who have been enslaved, people who have been marginalized over the course of centuries are currently today still marginalized, not by direct political control as maybe 200 years ago or 300 years ago, not by legislation explicitly declaring them to be undeserving people, but in just more euphemistic ways, that people who have been impoverished, people who have been underdeveloped, people and regions that have been impoverished and underdeveloped, and I insist on using underdeveloped in the sense that we learned to use it in the 1970s. That is, underdevelopment is not a state, it's a process, not just that everybody starts out underdeveloped and some lucky or smart people get to develop and others don't. Some peoples have been actively underdeveloped through the same process, kind of like what I was talking about in La Guajira, where it's not that they haven't contributed anything to climate change. They have been an integral part of the process, but they have been on the exploited end of the process rather than on the beneficiary end of the process of industrial development. So yeah, that's where the nuclear waste goes.
So I would be catching up with you all day, and I'd love to get into some of my experience with Mitch McConnell, some of my thoughts about what I heard about some demonstrations you did. So all three of us have, like, the 3 books that you've written recently, all 3 of us have some sort of affinity, all 3 of them. So Diallo talks a lot about climate change. People need to focus more on ecology instead of economy. And Jared, talks about the myth of Black buying power and working class struggles. So some of our questions might come from all over the place. We probably all read different books, but I'll get both.
But I want to ask a climate. I want to ask a climate question. I want to switch it up. Now that we started there,
I know Diallo got a climate question too. I think he's about to ask, but yeah,
go ahead, Diallo. Go ahead. You haven't got any yet.
This is something that I've started to encounter. Well, not started, but have always encountered in trying to just motivate people to embrace or to acknowledge the state and the trajectory of our world and climate. And I often hear people talk about the economic motivations for climate change, carbon emissions, refusal to change. But I was wondering if you had thoughts on the theological drive for the refusal to make these corrections in terms of apocalyptic theologies amongst the evangelicals and many other apocalyptic religions that believe that the world is just a way station, or that there is some impending conclusion to the earth, so that it is not really necessary to preserve the environment. It's not necessary to make serious adjustments to how we fuel societies and fuel systems because of apocalyptic belief and end time prophecies and other delusions and theological ideologies in that arena.
Wow, that is a really interesting question that I have to say I have not thought through in terms of the apocalyptic nature of, but let me say something about it in terms of kind of more general split in the whole long-term Christian tradition, because, like, just looking at U.S. history and Latin American history, I think we really see two branches of Christian theological thinking. And one is and I think this one is more closely related to the apocalyptic strand that you're talking about, is that our life on earth is just a preparation for our life after death. And so we should be preparing for paradise. And the way you do that is by accepting your fate on earth. So, the meek shall inherit the earth. And so that Christian religions, and I'm here talking about Catholic and all of the various different Protestant sects, have preached acceptance and humbleness, and just accept your fate here because something better awaits you later. But there's also been a radical strand in Christianity, which we see really emerging full-fledged in the 1960s and 1970s with liberation theology, which says that, no, it's God's will that we bring about justice on this earth, not that we accept injustice on this earth because we'll get something better after we pass. That it's our job on this earth to create social justice. So, of course, there have been some, these different strands of Christianity have contributed to revolutionary movements in the United States, and outside the United States, especially in Latin America. So, I'm just thinking on my feet here because, as I said, I haven't really looked into the role of apocalyptic Christianity in thinking about climate. But what you say certainly makes sense, and it also kind of fits in with the longer and broader Christian tradition of
all of these fools in Congress believe that stuff.
Not just Christianity, but also Islam and even some Eastern religions. And I'm familiar with the so-called, Christian ecology movement. They call it creation care. But as I started to engage with the creation care, they still have this fallacy of human dominion over Earth. So I think even the theological ecology movement or pro-ecology Christians or people of the Abrahamic faiths, they're still coming from it's I can't really call it radical or from a more formal sense of the concept of radical, because in the theological sense, they're approaching it as dominion and rulership of the earth and proper management of our possession, which I think still has a rotten core,
Real quick. So I'm sorry, last night, me and Diallo was actually talking about the concept of liberation theology. And so, yes, his not his focus, but one of his questions, a lot of his questions come from your book, Is Science Enough? Jared may be so organizing for power, and myself about the Latin America, because I'm currently organizing in Central America. And I really just found out that one of the leading liberation theologists died where I'm at because he was in exile here. He was from Chile. But in my search, I haven't found much of liberation theology, and haven't found a lot of African worker groups, knowing that Garvey was here with the United Fruit Company and he did some stuff here. But I think your point in the Latin America book, when you talk about Catholic imperialism, and then you think about Is Science Enough? I think the answer will come in, I guess, dealing with those two books.
First of all, I'm getting very Tommy vibes with you, Geechee. What is your job, my man? Where are you how you be where you be, man? I'm getting like the African Where's Waldo. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't have a job. I don't have a job. I'm broke. And if you got a job, you can get me a job at Morgan State.
But I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I'm also curious. Where are you? Are you actually in Central America?
Yeah. I'm in Costa Rica.
Man, be cool, y'all. Y'all calm down, man. Some people don't want to be found.
Well, then he could have said it. He didn't have to answer.
But some people don't want to have to acknowledge that they
Central
don't.
America,
He just said he was somewhere.
I'll drop my location if you need me to drop my location.
Let me tell y'all something.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm in Costa Rica.
Hey, listen. If I go somewhere, don't ask me questions.
But then don't sit up here talking about I might be somewhere.
No, I literally said I was in Central. I said I was in Central America.
And you don't think that begs a question of what you're doing in Central America?
And I answered.
Listen, I'm from the hood. I know you just don't ask questions. You roll with it.
Go ahead, Avi. Go ahead, Avi.
Well, I'm from the suburbs. I want to know what's going on.
See, that's why you be like, "What's going on?
Yeah,
who are you?
What's
what
going
are you?
on? That's right.
You know, them main questions you ask, man. People got to pat. Can somebody pat Jared down for a wire?
I think you got it backwards.
Let Avi respond.
Go ahead.
Now,
go ahead.
guys.
Diallo got it backwards though. Go ahead though.
No, I'm on Geechee's side.
We have limited time, and I think I went way too into depth in talking about clean coal and nuclear. But there's just one more thing that I do want to say about clean energy, because this was something that really troubled me at the meeting that I was at yesterday, which is that I really firmly believe, as I say in the book, that there is no form of clean energy. There are forms of energy that have lower greenhouse gas emissions, or even have no greenhouse gas emissions. Well, no, I wouldn't say there's no form of energy that's no greenhouse gas emissions. But because but this is what a Colombian union leader said to me long ago, back in 2012. Every form of energy production begins with extracting minerals from the earth and building things, and ends with producing waste. So there is no such thing as clean energy, and we're really fooling ourselves if we think, and he was talking to us from the United States. We are the biggest overusers of energy on the planet, right? Climate change comes from this country, not you in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is much better than we are. But so that energy is a colonial issue. That is energy, overuse of energy, and talk about colonization of the atmospheric commons, that the planet's atmosphere, and this kind of goes back to your theological question too, just like the land and the water and the air, are not there for us to destroy. Humans have to learn to live in harmony with the world that we have been given, whether you see that in religious terms or purely material terms.
But this is why, if I can, this is the one question I did want to ask before we leave this subject is about, because I'm admittedly way out of my depth here, but I was fascinated by the film executive produced by Michael Moore a couple of years ago, and I was actually more fascinated by the response it got, and I'm talking about Planet of the Humans. So I don't know if you are familiar with that film with the surrounding response, or so what I would have considered a controversy in terms of what seemed to be his political allies condemning the film, but it seemed to be making the same point that you're making, that under the guise of clean and alternative, all of these solar and wind and other alternatives, so-called, are ultimately tied to the same extractive forces, and are misrepresented by people who are nominally representing some advanced progressive climate change. And the reaction he got from his, what I thought were his peers, colleagues, friends, etc., was fascinating. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that, if that related. Anyway.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, Ozzy Zayner, who he produced the film with and who's interviewed extensively in the film, he also wrote a book in 2012 called Green Illusions, about this fallacy of clean energy. But I also had some criticisms of the film.
Oh, okay.
And Zayner's book was really, really influential for me. I love the book, and I still try to make everybody I know read it. It was really an inspiration for my own book. But I feel like I'm much more on board with the point that Zayner made in the book than with the way Michael Moore tried to present it in the film. Because Zayner's point in the book is that because there is no form of clean energy, but energy is a human right. That is, every person on the planet has the right to energy, just as they have the right to clean water and food and shelter, and that we should consider access to energy a human right. But because energy is a scarce resource, and it's a resource that has costs, we need to put our efforts into providing energy for the people who need it to satisfy their daily needs, and to scale way down our use of this precious resource. So yes, we do need so-called clean energy, solar, wind, whatever, but we need a lot less energy in the United States and a lot more energy for people who have no electricity, who are, cooking on and with wood and poisoning their own homes and atmospheres because they don't have access to energy. So it's really a redistributive issue, and we need to think about it in terms of global economic equality and decolonization of the atmospheric commons and rational use of the scarce resources that we have on this planet for the rights of humans. I felt like Michael Moore in the film took this I felt like he was targeting the wrong people. Michael Moore has a kind of a strategy that I felt worked really well in Roger and Me. That was my favorite one of Michael Moore's films, where, trying to track down the CEO of, I can't remember which automobile company it
General
was.
General
Motors, okay. But trying to do the same with Bill McKibben just didn't work for me. Bill McKibben years ago was advocating a particular form of so-called clean energy, burning like wood chips or something. He's already abandoned that idea years ago. He's learned that doesn't work. And I just felt like he was kind of misdirected, and that Michael Moore also didn't really address what I thought was the central issue of Zahner's book, which is that, yes, we need energy, but we need to consider energy in terms of social justice. So I felt like he missed some of the big points. And social justice, climate justice means that that we do need so-called clean energy, and we need lots of things that rely on extracting resources from the earth. I mean, all of us eat food that was extracted from the earth in some way or other. Like, we need farms, right? We need
right, but the film isn't saying, but the extraction of vegetables and fruit is not the same as what the film was pointing out, that the claim that solar and wind energy is safer it's the electricity that goes into an electric car is still powered from coal. It's still it's in the wind
and everything
turbine
else that goes into the electric car. Even if we are producing our electricity in different ways, electric cars are incredibly toxic. But people need to move around. We don't need individual cars, but we need trains, we need buses. Like, we still need to move around. And people in the world who don't have access to any kind of transit and mobility are the ones that really need it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess I just felt like he was targeting the wrong thing rather than thinking in redistributive terms and the colonial aspect of all of this. Like, yes, everything he says is true, but so what do we do with that? Do we say, okay, the entire human race has to stop using energy altogether? Or do we say—
what I took him to be saying we need to abandon our approach to these issues and stop going through nonprofits and corporate funding, and because that was the point I remember him making most about Bill McKibben, was that he was saying that under the guise of nominal change, he's taking money from all the biggest polluters and offering a solution that doesn't address that problem. So it was very much an argument that I do feel a biased affinity for, which is that I'm only criticizing the false claims of advance. I don't have an actual plan. And I didn't think he needed to offer one. I thought he was doing an important point of saying we're approaching our criticism in the wrong way and we're not going to actually get to a solution. But admittedly, he's never going to, I mean, not never, but he's rarely gone as far as you are suggesting in terms of addressing the structures of capitalism and colonialism. But I did think that one point he was harping on, I thought was very valuable. But I'm admittedly outside of I didn't mean to take over that much of the conversation. I just wanted to ask you.
I agree with that point, but I just felt that the targeting of Bill McKibben there was kind of a cheap shot.
Okay, right on.
Given the entire situation, like he's not really the source of evil here.
Right on.
Well, I've always stated that, capitalism doesn't seek to solve problems. It only seeks to profit from problems. And there are those who said, as, Dr. Ball and kind of alluded to, that our methodology for acknowledging and addressing issues is not working. So I was wondering if you were familiar with like the NCIV or deep green resistance movements, or what U.S. mainstream media might call eco-terrorists. But I disagree, because I think the eco-terrorists are the fossil fuel companies and the policies that protect them, the government officials that protect them. But those who say, we have to just, and some in the comment have mentioned, deconstruct civilization, extractive energies, and not try to find a better way to do the wrong thing, but just end the way to do a wrong thing. So totally renegotiating human existence and human relationships with the ecosystems completely from the ground up.
So I feel like the deep green approach is really valuable, but that it also fails to address the issue of climate justice and human rights. And that, I mean, I agree that we have to completely restructure civilization as we call it, but I feel like the deep green movement doesn't see civilization in terms of the global economic order. That it's kind of like Michael Moore's film. It's looking at one slice, which is an important slice, but that if you abstract that slice from a critique of the global economic order, what you end up with is a lot of poor people dying.
That's curious, because a lot of poor people are already dying in the current system, So I mean, a lot of poor people are already dying and being injured in the current system. So when you have solutions and you propose, or you say, well, we can't really implement the solution because the solution might give us more of what we already have in terms of poor people dying. That's been the status quo for the entire course of capitalism, imperialism.
But think about healthcare, for example. Poor people, and I'm thinking globally here, both poor people in the United States, but poor people worldwide, they need more access to healthcare. They also need clean land, water, air. But I feel like if we just take a completely anti-technology position, nobody's going to have access to healthcare.
Well, I've never, from my understanding of the NCIV movement, it's not an anti-tech movement, as they define civilization and what civilization is at its core, and how civilization functions at its core. It's not anti-tech. In fact, civilization corrupts and limits the development of technology because of intellectual property laws and copyright laws and oversight. So actually, civilization as they understand it, well, I wouldn't call it civilization, I would call it white hegemony, limits people, because people all over the world have created technologies that they don't have access to because of the way the economy is structured. And
Well,
a lot of times justice is really defined as not people in the so-called global south or third world or whatever you have for the colonized and oppressed people. People construct justice for them as them being able to live like the West, or everyone gets to live like white people in the Western world. And so it's like, well, we can't do these things, we have to construct a system where we all can live like Americans, where we can all have the same things. And number one, the world can't sustain that. But number two, the rest of the world generally doesn't want that.
well, so real quick, I think what right now is, selfishly, I've always wanted to hear a really good intention conversation around modernity and primitivism. And it sounds like this is where the conversation is going, but like I hear, when I hear it, I hear people always saying modernity is, oh, we have to do this. And then primitivism, oh, we got to go back to living in caves. And I'm like, it seems like that conversation is never like honest. And so like you both of you are kind of doing that right now. So I appreciate it, but go ahead and respond.
Yes. So, I mean, actually existing modernity is a system of colonialism, capitalism, and exploitation, right? But it has also produced forms of energy production, science, technology that I mean, well, I completely, okay, so everybody in the world can't live like people in the United States live. People in the United States can't live the way people in the United States live. But we need to think from a perspective of social justice. How do we scale down, and what are basic human rights? And one of the models that I think is really useful comes out of the Stockholm Resilience Center, the idea of planetary boundaries. And then the concept of donut economics, which Kate Rayworth has developed. So planetary boundaries looks at 9 different ways in which we are exceeding the limits. We humans are exceeding the limits of planetary ecological stability. So greenhouse gas emissions is one of them. Ocean acidification is one. Biodiversity is one. So that our industrial societies are pushing us past planetary boundaries in these different areas. And what Kate Rayworth does with that is she, instead of just having like the circle of the boundaries, she puts an inner circle of basic human needs that need to be satisfied. So it's like the social floor. So we need to produce and consume enough so that everybody on the planet has access to education, clean water, health, energy, food, shelter. I can't remember what all of her social foundation is. And that we want to develop an economy that puts us in this donut in the middle between the outer rim of planetary boundaries. So we're not extracting and producing too much for the planet, but that makes us not fall below the social foundation. And right now, we're falling below the social foundation. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, like poor people are already dying. We're falling below the social foundation in every single one of the areas that she names. And we're exceeding the planetary boundaries in many areas too. So what we need to do is bring down the overconsumption so that we can bring up the underconsumption while remaining within planetary boundaries. So, I mean, that's kind of how I visualize what climate justice and environmental justice would really mean. And of course, that means completely, yes, like capitalism is not going to do that for us. We have to find other ways of putting justice at the center of how we organize our economy. And that means some people have to consume less so that others can consume more. And that we need to prioritize, like, yes, we need to extract, we need to produce and consume energy and food, and other things. But how can we do that in a way that is socially just and that respects the limits of the planet?
So, go ahead, Diallo, and if you have another one in that area.
Well, and also it's funny where which I think should also be brought up is atmospheric engineering or planetary engineering, which is another I don't know, for lack of a better word, Urugu or psychopathic Western psychopathic mind state solution. I was wondering if you could speak to that geoengineering, or it's many names for it, but it's basically hacking the planet and running the entire planet as legit by computer simulation and AI, and totally chemically and biochemically transforming the soil and just if you could speak to that
Mhm.
so-called
Mhm.
solution.
Yeah, and one of the ways that I've areas that I've looked at it the most is the idea of, well, to counteract the effect of the accumulation of greenhouse gas emissions, we have to throw something else into the atmosphere to try to mirror back the sun's rays to counteract the effect of the greenhouse effect, which is what we have been causing. All of those solutions require so-called solutions require huge amounts of energy, first of all. They're going to cause completely unknown effects, terrifying possibilities for what kind of effects they can cause. And, what we've learned is, just think about the many, many times that we have tried to find these sort of techno fixes to the planetary boundaries. Think about the Green Revolution, for example. We need to, not everybody has enough to eat. So instead of redistributing the scarce resources of the planet in a rational way, we're just going to produce more and more food by using artificial by basically infusing a lot of fossil fuels into our agricultural system. So pesticides, fertilizers, mechanizations that can, and geoengineering of seeds. And so, yes, more food is being produced, but inequality is exacerbated. Contamination of the air, land, and water is increased, and so is greenhouse gas emissions. And people are still hungry because it's happening within an economic system that is based on profit and that is based on benefiting the few at the expense of the many. So, I think it's another kind of false solution that tries to lull people into acceptance while enabling the rich to continue getting richer and making a lot of profit while
Right.
destroying the planet for the rest of us.
Yeah. But and one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. I'm very uncomfortable with the concept of equality and even redistribution, and there's another, but privilege. Um, being equal with your oppressor makes you equal to your oppressor. And redistribution, a lot of times falls into, building Walmarts overseas, or giving people, again, making everybody white. Everybody live white, everybody function white. Everyone should be able to enjoy the spoils of American imperialism. How do we better all partake in the spoils and the profits of the system, when there should be, this system is unfit and unjust, and it should not be the arbiter or the distributor. So you're just saying, well, the system that exists distributes resources this way, so we want the system that exists to redistribute in this way, when the system shouldn't exist. So it's a lot of times where you have a omnicidal system, and we keep trying to appeal to the omnicidal system to do better when it shouldn't exist. And I think that's really the conversation that because we keep, every conversation we have around saving the planet incorporates and even appeals to the leadership and submits to the power of the very systems and individuals and conglomerates that are killing the planet. I don't see how that's rational, let alone feasible.
No, I agree with you completely. And when I talk about, maybe people use the term redistribute in different ways, but to me, a redistributive economy is like a Robin Hood economy. It's taking from the rich. It is a different kind of system. It's not saying everybody is going to, it's not saying we want to just keep reproducing what we have now. It's saying that we have to fundamentally and radically transform what we have now. And, many non-capitalist economies in world history have been based on, rather than on a principle of accumulation, on a principle of reciprocity. And that is reciprocity with the earth, but also reciprocity with the other humans in your circle. So that, when you have a good harvest or kill a deer, the goal is not to hoard it for your own family, but to share it with your neighbors. And that security comes from reciprocity and knowing that you can rely on others in times of need, rather than on accumulating in this individualistic way, which is basically what capitalism is about. So that I agree that the system is rotten to the core. But what I'm proposing is not just that we keep making more capitalism so that we can have more people doing terrible things, but that so when I say redistribution, I'm talking more about deep economic restructuring rather than just like expanding capitalism.
So I don't know how much time we have left with you, but if you can kind of get into what you was laying out with your latest book about Latin America. I know you mentioned something about the Monroe Doctrine, which would be Europeans in America trying to keep other Europeans out of their business as they, control the Americas. So just kind of lay out what was your thrust in the latest book that you've written on Latin America.
Yeah, sure. And maybe this should be the last question because I do have a lot of grading to do today. So I need to get on to the next piece of the day. Since I was at the conference all day yesterday, I'm behind and everything. So the Central America book, it's not about all of Latin America, but focuses on Central America. So the title is Central America's Forgotten History, Revolution, Violence, and the Roots of Migration. And I can actually kind of connect it to what we've just been talking about, like what kind of economy could we have? Because I think in the 1980s in Central America, there were really radical attempts at forming a different kind of economy, what I would call redistributive economies. And one of the reasons, I was doing a lot of work on immigration and paying a lot of attention, especially in the second decade of this century, as there was all this talk I mean, there was a phenomenon of really big jumps in migration from Central America. And then there was all this talk about, oh, Central American migrants, why are they coming to the United States? But it seemed like everyone in the United States had sort of, or at least in positions of power in the United States, had forgotten, and therefore the mass media had forgotten, that this didn't come out of nowhere, that in the 1970s and the 1980s, Central America was also on the front pages of the newspapers because of the revolutions that were going on there. And that there were also large movements in the United States in solidarity with the revolutions that were going on. Nicaragua had a successful revolution in 1979. In El Salvador, the revolutionary movement, the FMLN, controlled a significant part of the country's territory. In Guatemala, also, there was a revolutionary movement in the 1970s and 1980s, and that the United States played the role of working to crush these revolutionary experiments that were going on in these three countries. And, you know, that's been the case ever since the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. Like Monroe said, it was to keep the Europeans out, but it quickly came to mean to make sure that Latin Americans cannot try any experiments, and I would call them experiments in redistribution, in creating a different kind of economy, rather than having their, rather than Central American or Latin American elites collaborating with US foreign investors to exploit the poor of Latin America, in a nutshell. And that I really see and I mean, especially in Nicaragua, but also in the liberated zones of El Salvador and Guatemala, you really did see this kind of radical experimentation in creating different kinds of economies. And the United States was absolutely determined to crush these, with no concern for how many people had to die, how many people had to be displaced, how much land had to be destroyed in order to crush these revolutionary experiments. And that by the 1990s, I would point to the 1990 election, in which the United States completely dominated the electoral process in Nicaragua, the 1992 peace agreements in El Salvador, the 1996 peace agreements in Guatemala. Those revolutionary options had really been crushed, and there was a full-fledged onslaught of neoliberal capitalist economics, which meant the disappearance of government services, austerity, cutbacks in everything, and a huge influx of foreign investment in areas like maquiladoras, offshore processing, tourism, mining, extractivism. And that if you want to know why Central Americans are being displaced from their land and subjected to violence, and why they're fleeing their countries, you need to understand this process, and that the crushing of the revolutionary options was a prerequisite for what I call savage neoliberalism in Central America, which is the cause of the flood of refugees from those countries. So that is my book in a nutshell. But I'm connecting it to the previous questions because there have been attempts at radically reformulating economies and how they work, in redistributive ways. But the United States has been absolutely opposed to letting those have a chance.
Thank you so much. So like I said, just in case Jared get dropped off from Morgan State, I'm gonna make sure he has your information. So
no, I appreciate that. It's and thank you for coming through. It's been a pleasure to get to meet and talk with you a little bit this morning. Yeah, I look forward to reading more of the latest work and finishing the book we were looking at that we didn't get a chance to talk to with all this morning, but we'll hopefully do this again another time. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd like to, if you could share my appreciation with your father. You know, I've been reading his book since I was 12 years old, and greatly appreciate, you know, his contribution.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you so much for your questions and your time.
Right on.
Absolutely.
Anytime. Thank you for coming through. Take care.
Right,
you too.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Avi Chomsky, the daughter of Kamal's favorite scholar, white scholar. You're still here with Earn Your Liberation, Black Power Media. Thanks for everybody's attendance and viewership in the vibrant chat as usual. So what you all think? Where we at? What's up?
We need some like a segue for the politics watching, but I think we should call it poly watching because
poly watching
shortening for branding purposes. You know, I'm going into my marketing mindset now.
Yeah, we do have to update. We need some help with the updates on drops and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into some poly watches. Is that what we're gonna do? So I'll at least hit this real quick as a transition, and we'll get into some poly watching here on EYL. There you go. So let's get into some.
The Court's top thought leader.
Well, at first, I wanted for people that aren't, we're gonna want to have a reoccurring segment where we do politics watching instead of pocket watching, looking into the ideology, the mindset, the motivations, and the potential outcomes, I guess, of various political ideologies and the individuals or communities or movements or organizations that embody that ideology, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
sure.
This week, well, as we go into it, for this week, I'd like to propose that politics watching. I want to announce my GoFundMe for Tekashi 6ix9ine's medical bills. If you could share the link, please contribute. I promise, cross my heart, hope to die. And y'all know I don't play it like that. You know, I swear on my Lord and Savior. You know, I don't play it by my Lord and Savior. That if you donate to my Tekashi 6ix9ine medical and recovery fund, the funds will get to him one way or another. So go ahead and kick in and let's get that money up for our brother.
We need some whack 100 drops.
Man, just share my GoFundMe link.
Oh, shoot, he hospitalized for real. Oh, I thought you was joking. Damn, my bad.
Oh, you haven't heard about this? You haven't heard about this? Oh, man, you too busy.
Rica.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You got to come
on
to Central America.
What happened?
All that work.
You missing? You not up on the most important.
Hey, we send my soldiers. We send my soldiers over here. We don't have violence. I'm joking.
Oh, hold up though. Sounds a saint elsewhere. You are tripping heavily this morning. Heavily.
So I look. Matter of fact, take that off the screen. But I ain't even gonna pay attention to that. Wow. But I was gonna ask her if she ever met Christian Parenti. I know he's younger, but did they ever feel any rivalry or like my dad
nepotism?
But
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Yeah.
No, we would still need to ask about her father and Michael Parenti. Did they what's that rivalry?
It was a lot. There was a whole lot.
Look, even Dr. James Turner, the late great founder and founding director of the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell University, even he assigned us Parenti's Democracy for the Few. So that tells me, if not everything, a lot of what I need to know about the quality of the scholarship. So there is no way Parenti is overrated, especially when he gets so little attention, even in comparison to Chomsky. So, but anyway, my bad. Go ahead. Yeah, I don't mean to take away focus from this important Tekashi 6ix9ine.
We have so few good white folks. I think we need to show when we do get a good white folk, we need to, be appreciative because there's so few and far between.
The unicorn effect, praise the unicorn, Diallo.
A halfway decent white person, that's a precious resource. Don't squander it.
Don't.
We've been talking about resources all morning, and here y'all being wasteful.
Damn, man.
So let me ask a not so disrespectful question. So Tekashi 6ix9ine is what? He's Latino, black, white.
He's a conquistador, if you ask me. He's Mexican, but I think he leans toward the
Mexicans can't be conquistador.
Huh? What?
He's Chicano, man. Chicano, right?
What the hell is that?
And Mexican, indigenous.
That ain't how he flex.
I don't know.
And
man.
what
Honestly,
about him?
I don't know, man.
What
Honestly, I have no idea.
Resonates
Mexican and Puerto Rican.
Mexican.
No, I don't know. I'm talking about Chicano identity. Nothing. I don't know. Nothing. I don't know. Nothing. You're right.
his persona, his personality, his disposition screams conquistador to me.
So so what got him on using the, he's very comfortable with the N-word. I mean, I don't know much about Tekashi, but
let me tell you
ahead.
something. First time I was ever called the N-word to my face by a non-black person was in New York City.
Yeah.
And in Brooklyn, New York City, and a Puerto Rican conquistador called me the N-word on a basketball court.
Oh,
and
he from Brooklyn.
I flipped, and all the brothers, all the black dudes on the court said that I was in the wrong for flipping out on this.
Yeah.
So I blame y'all. Y'all got Puerto Ricans and y'all got conquistadors using the N-word, but then you go to the West Coast, y'all know about China Mac and all the Asian Crips and all them. They got Asian people using the N-word on the West Coast.
Listen, my mom from the Bronx, and anytime I spend time in Throgs Neck, I ain't never heard one white person or Latino person use the N-word. So
are you serious?
I said
the
me.
Latino part.
Man, listen, that's why you in that. Hey, listen, enjoy your time in witness protection. Because you want to talk about 6ix9ine. Listen,
hey, I don't know about 6ix9ine. I don't really, you gotta tell me, but I ain't never heard none of that stuff in the Bronx. So
well, you never heard Fat Joe?
That's some Brooklyn. That's some Brooklyn shit.
Fat Joe did he even did a recent video defending.
Don't count.
Within the last year, he did a video defending his right and use and
Immortal
the
Technique.
respect.
Well,
Fat Joe, Immortal Technique.
Well, Mortal Technique.
Yeah, Immortal Technique.
And that's a conscious rapper you said you like?
I can't listen to his music anymore. I can't.
Oh, I
like his politics, but I can't listen to a conquistador. Y'all be playing with these designations. Spanish didn't originate. I thought Spanish was a European language.
Right, and it's but you do have to recognize. I don't want to attempt the thing here, but I can't help it. You do recognize the difference between Spaniards and Latin Americans.
Yes.
Okay, that's
the difference is a boat trip.
Wow.
Just like with us, like Dr. Clark said, the only difference between a Nigerian, a Black American, and a Jamaican is a boat stop. So yes,
but the differences are very important, and that's factually incorrect. Wow, that's
only
okay.
Listen.
All right.
But here we go. I think black people getting hemmed up and tripped up with this.
Get into Tekashi politics.
I am with you on the issue of the use of the N-word. I don't like it at all, and I definitely do not. I am not on the team where people say Latinos get a pass with that. I'm not on that team. But the fact is, to the point where I don't understand Geechee's point, is that the fact is we are way out the barn with that. That's all I'm saying. If I go to Langley Park, if I go to my in-laws gatherings, which is very Latino and African diaspora, the word is there. Is
I don't play like that.
I'm in agreement with you. I won't lie. I'm not gonna suggest that I make it an issue every single time. But
here's the thing, though.
It's just what it is.
This is where we got mixed up, and I think we need to bring the term, the history, and the reality of the conquistador back into the modern lexicon when we talk about Black and brown relations. Because if you can find a Latin American culture that is not overtly racist, including Cuba, against African people and African descendants, and you can find a Latin American culture that's not currently engaged in genocidal practices and discriminatory practices against its native inhabitants, its native tribes and populations, and violating the native lands, then we can have a talk about blanket allowing everybody south of the U.S.-Mexico border and having that blanket terminology, Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, and all that. There's a very that the population and the class and racial distinctions south of the border are just as well established and stringent there as they are in the United States. And
All I'm
calling
saying
that
is
whole region and dealing with all them people as though they're one is like is an American melting pot.
Again, you're doing
fallacy.
it again. Nobody is saying that. Just be clear. Nobody here is saying that. What
Good.
I am
I'm
saying,
happy.
what all I was simply encouraging is that you do need to recognize that the difference between Spain and Latin America, and you're oversimplifying what's going on in Latin America. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I
But I
told
am
you the
with you
difference.
on
The difference is a boat stop.
but that's wrong. But that's factually incorrect. So, and to make the comparisons even between the African diaspora and the point about Clark and Jamaica is factually incorrect. So the populations of Latin America are amazingly comprised of African, indigenous, and conquistadors.
Right, but we call them all the same. We use the same name for all of them.
But that's not even true either.
I'm about to mute both of y'all.
Okay.
Let's get to the politics of '69 that you had prepared, so that we don't go off into this other tangent. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, my politics is not so much I think the existence of the rat and the snitching and the RICO case that 6ix9ine came out of awakened in my personal sphere, in my local community and my online community, this discussion about snitching and this discussion about where it's so many people I know, wholesome, stable individuals, who bake pies and cookies for their offspring that are now on this, he a rat, he a snitch. And it kind of blew my mind. Like, what does that have to do with you? So the inundation or the saturation of street gang culture, this reactionary, predatory mentality of the street, the hood, the gang, into everyday life where people are out here mad at 6ix9ine, who is a disgusting figure. I've never liked this kid, but the one thing one of the reasons, if you ask me to go down the laundry list of the reasons I don't like him snitching on the 9 Trey Bloods would not make that list when that seems to be the top of everyone's list. So I think and I saw so many people after he was assaulted coming online celebrating this. And I don't understand how they see it as a personal win for them or a win for the culture or a win for the community that this guy was beaten up or attacked for what I assume was him being a rat in the hood, street, or gang culture. So it's more so the politics of the street politics or hood politics are the politics that I want to look into, and how street and hood politics saturate people who ain't street or hood, which is the masses of Black people. So the vast majority of people in the hood.
A couple of things for me is that again, going back to your point earlier, Diallo, about my positioning and all of this, is that in my household, it was very different. It took me years to catch up to what most folks were saying when they meant snitching, because in my household, snitching had a very specific history, and it was connected to not snitching on people organizing labor movements and unions. So by the time I emerged into these tree-lined streets enough to be made aware of these other definitions, I was very late and confused. Then the other section is where I do think I understand some of what is supposed to be the street code, is that snitching is when 2 or more people consciously engage in an act, and then when caught, tell on the other, as opposed to being an innocent person in a community telling on someone for committing a crime against others in the community when you're not involved in that life in the first place. Now, I'm not condoning, I'm just differentiating as I understood the categories. The last part for me, to the extent that I did a year ago or so, a somewhat of a deep dive into the Tekashi backstory. He did grow up and was immersed as a youngster in the Brooklyn Black blood community or whatever at some point, apparently. And then once into this gang and got caught up in whatever he got caught up in, where he began snitching was in response to members of his own gang threatening him and disrespecting him and assaulting and even I think at one point assaulting him, at which point he then said, well, if we're not crew anymore, I'm going to get myself out of this situation. Again, I'm not condoning, just trying to clarify what I think is, parsing out all to get to the point where I do ultimately agree with you, Diallo, that on the one hand, as I'm watching this guy he seems to invite the violence and dare the violence. I do think I agree with your point that, as I understand it, that this collective celebration, as if the community has won a victory, because he took this beating, when none of the actions of those involved should be condoned or supported, and none of it is helping anybody in the community, I think is a problem. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. That's it. That's all I got.
So that's actually, like I said, I don't watch much, I don't hear much of it, but I did see a clip of him doing exactly what you said, and Whack 100 was there. He was like, well, come see me in the streets. And he actually asked for it. So I did, and not finding out that this was happening, I mean, I didn't even know. So, but I do remember him asking to get his ass cut.
I come from the same, pedigree as Jared, whereas to me, not snitching on a collective level meant you don't tell on people that are in opposition to the system. Whatever opposition or harm or criminality they were engaged in against the system, you didn't tell on them. It had nothing to do with protecting people who preyed upon other people in the community. Even like with food stamps, you going out and little nickel and dime hustles around food stamps or getting over in that way, you keep your mouth shut. But if someone is murdering or preying upon the vulnerable people in the community,
or stealing your food stamps.
Exactly. So, but even on a grander scale than that, where a lot of people, this snitch code, a lot of people who are exempt or have no place in that world are now where the hood aesthetic, the gangster aesthetic, many of our Black leaders have started this rhetoric around the gangs being our frontline soldiers, the rhetoric around street, which we've discussed before. And just 6ix9ine being such a vibrant and visible and rainbow colored neon sign for the cultural, what I call the cultural maladaptation or cultural malformation of hip hop and the fallout from that a lot of people like to cosplay as gangsters. You find gangster and hood rhetoric saturating and in places where it didn't belong and never was present, and it's not really relevant. So just these people playing gangster, to me, is highly disturbing, because as we forget, gangsterism and gangs and gangsters have the exact same goals, and many of over as the capitalist. They are capitalists. I mean, if we read Amos Wilson, Black on Black Crime, Black self-annihilation in service to white domination or white supremacy, it just disturbs me that the aesthetic, the rhetoric, the value system of the hood, the street, the gangster is, number one, seen as being synonymous with Black, and Black people who don't even have to navigate that shit are now adopting and embracing and articulating it. I think that's very dysfunctional, if not extremely harmful for the Black community.
It's I wanted to, I should have done this already. Let me look this up real quick, because what is Tekashi's what's the word I'm looking for? Record label background.
I don't know, but why are you looking that up?
But also, can I
real
just
quick?
yeah,
we're gonna give a shout out to the people
Virgin Music. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Let's give a shout out to the people who supporting Diallo. Yeah, we definitely want this Guru Diallo. Like, you ain't been in character, or your homeboy ain't come through the show yet. My bad,
How
not
dare
you. But none of your homeboys came to the show yet. We asked for them. They MIA. I don't know what they're doing.
Like I
so
said, Guru Diallo, man, that brother, he got so much money, man. And if it ain't money, if you're not talking money, he can't hear you.
Well, the chat gonna have to give us some money so we can book
Kevin
him.
got $9.99 on it.
Yeah, that
Thank
might
you,
now.
Kevin.
Now I think Guru, his ears are perking up, y'all. Pass the plate. If y'all want Guru to get that plate passed around.
Hey, what's his booking fee, yo? What's his booking fee? Get us a booking fee so we can total up and we can do a fundraising.
Guru Diallo feeds off of energy. He don't even need your money. He'll take it, but he don't need it. You know, he feeds off of the energy of the people.
All right, well let's see.
By the way,
a vampire, but in a good way.
The point that I was looking at.
Go ahead.
No, finish it. No, my bad. Finish.
No, I was saying we can see if we can get a couple. We need Guru Diallo in the chats, and then.
But yeah, I'll reach out to the brother. You know,
Yeah,
fortunately, the only way to reach him is through sending out vibratory frequencies into the universe. Those frequencies through his turban. So I'll start to meditate on the brother, and I'm sure he will make his way.
This is what you need to get the Guru here. Guru,
yes, vibratory frequency.
You need to. This is what you need right here. But the point that I was trying to get at real quick, I think goes to both of these issues, Tekashi and to this issue of now I just lost my train of thought. But the point I'm getting at is that I just looked it up. Tekashi's label ultimately goes back to Universal Music Group. And the specifics of what Diallo and where I agree, is saying about Tekashi, I still do look at this as a lot of this being imposed on us by white folks, those in power, the structure itself. Tekashi's fame is an industry product. The distribution of all these maladjusted ideas is an industry colonial product. So I mean, it's just I forgot what did you all just say? You just said there was another that I was going to connect that to. But anyway, whatever.
But I do want to correct you on Tekashi's origin story. He did not grow up in the hood in the gangs. Oh, I thought you said
that's not
that.
what I said. At one point he did have some because at one point they were talking about somebody's mother in Brooklyn had even he was like seen as a part of the family at one point. He came around so much at some point. I'm just talking about what I remember as being said about his early involvement or how he got involved with the Bloods.
So the way he got involved with the Bloods, let me just clarify this. But the way he got involved with the Bloods was he was shooting a rap video. And he needed some people to stand in the background to look menacing. And he made a request that the Bloods stand in the background of his video and look menacing. And that was kind of like his first foray into gang life. And when they saw how popular and how much he resonated, they decided to manage him and bring him into the fold in order to profit off of that. So he really hadn't beat before that video shoot where he was using black gang members as props in his video. He had no credentials. He was Daniel Hernandez before that. So he's kind of like he don't have no street cred in terms of anything prior to the whole image is constructed.
So let me ask this question. For over a year now, especially after I think me and Jared, I don't know if Diallo was there yet, but we had a conversation with Dr. Joy James. We've been talking about like justice, and then she said, what if the community created this idea of the consequences of things? So I wonder how y'all feel about, again, like I think what she was saying is pivot away from the word justice, because it's like you got to depend on the state to get that, but having community consequences for different actions or whatever. So I guess my question is, what do y'all think about developing that? Like, how possible do we need to be already kind of like well politically organized, and just kind of your thoughts around justice and
well, I always think the answer is yes. I mean, none of it's going to come without some organization, and my first thought is honestly a pessimistic one. So I hope you all or anyone else can demonstrate that I'm flawed here. But I think one of the biggest problems we have just in general right now is that people are not willing to submit to any sort of authority. They're not willing to submit to any to willfully give over some authority to other people in their community or in their organizations. So I could see the first problem being that people will look at it as no one here not here, but no one in the community organization will recognize that anyone else has any authority to which they are willing to submit. And I saw, I even thought that this is a huge problem with what was being encouraged within Black Lives Matter and the whole, leader full movement and all of this, that I did think we needed to be willing within organizational spaces to adopt some degree of military type procedure in terms of recognizing, investing authority in someone, accepting that authority, and being, and I see that as a big hurdle. So for all we would want to say about we don't want the police this, the police that, who are we going to vest with authority to within the community to call us out and check us and et cetera and so forth? I don't know. So anyway, that's just my initial thought to the question.
Well, as for me, I've come up with what I call the self-exposure protocol, which is because I don't support, vigilante justice. I do not support threatening violence or engaging in violence against people for any reasons. And I think the only justified forms of violence are defensive violence and ascending violence. I don't support lateral and descending violence. So in that, how do you regulate a population? Because laws are really about, trying to encourage certain and incentivize certain behaviors and discourage and barring other behaviors. And as a community, if you want to look at any population and say, well, these people, we can't depend on the legitimate authorities or the power for because they enforce laws, not really it's about sustaining and advancing commerce. And that's what most of the laws, but 9/10 of the law are all about, protecting the status quo, i.e. the economy. So anyway, I've devised a way for organizations and even individuals to engage in a grassroots guerrilla justice system that is free of any type of lateral or descending violence. And I call it the exposure protocol, self-exposure protocol. And the basic is very simple. It's all to, as we were talking about primitivism, you expose, isolate, and expel. You cannot level accusations against someone that aren't rooted in evidence that can be made available to the community from which you're operating and you're trying to implement the protocol. So your accusations have to be about exposing the violations. And if someone is found to have engaged in, counter-revolutionary or treasonous actions, you can isolate them within the community, which is the less ideal one, meaning, nobody, it's very, I don't fuck with that, and I don't fuck with dude. And then if at a higher level, and if it's so egregious, then you expel them. You don't allow them into the spaces that we control. And so the exposing and isolating and expelling is a way to engage in a grassroots justice system without exposing our community or our people to greater risk from the oppressors' criminal justice system. So I think, and as you begin to cultivate revolution into to larger and more grand acts of subversion, more complex and forms of organization, guerrilla movements, then you can start to graduate to councils and having trials and things of that nature. But because within certain parts of the world, mainly the United States, our revolutionary movements haven't cultivated themselves, we have to use more reasonable and effective means. And I think incentivizing people who do good and do the right thing, and discouraging those who don't through exposure, isolation, and expelling them from our communities, from our movements, or even from our personal spaces.
I agree. I mean, I don't think I heard anything I don't like. I just struggle with how we get there. So I get it, and I see some of the comments in the chat about, this is why we organize. But that was the first thing I said, that we need to be organized. And but even within that, the willingness to, again, vest others with authority that is then dealt with in principled ways, and that is submitted to, is still an issue. I mean, and I'll just speak on my own behalf. Like I struggle with that. I look at the formation of, I look at many formations and I end up seeing them as fronts for some cult of personality, and it inhibits me from submitting to their authority. Without that submission to authority, I'm not going to follow any of these rules, and I'm not going to have anybody do nobody's going to come to me, and who's going to come to me and tell me, I don't know, whatever. I'm going to be like, nah, I don't, so now I might say that I have a legitimate reason for feeling this way, and that these formations are themselves, flawed in their organization, and there is a cult of personality, and that does need to be adjusted. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, or whatever. But the fact still remains that well, whether it's me or anybody else, there does have to be that sort of that the ability to say, okay, here is whatever, an individual, a collective leadership. We're going to submit to that authority. I'm going to follow instructions, do what I need to do to get to the point where we would have the ability to say who's doing the assessing of others' behavior, and who's going to then be able to act on that assessment to do the exposure, the removal, and so on and so on and so forth. So anyway, just ruminations to shout out to KRS-One's Once Upon a Time book. That anyway.
Well, in an organizational structure, because just thinking back to the various organizations formal organizations that I've been a member of, the code of conduct should be articulated. The goals, the agenda. I also think the ideology. I think a lot of our formations are very weak on ideology and articulating ideology. They just kind of say, well, we want to do this good thing. We want to, whether it's police brutality, whether it's first aid, whether it's, food security and housing security, no matter what, they always articulate their noble goals, but they don't really articulate the ideology, which I think lays the foundation on very weak sand. So when those things are articulated by voluntarily, and it's a more anarcho perspective, voluntarily joining the group or voluntarily affiliating with the group, you also voluntarily agree to adhere to the code of conduct and to make whatever defined contributions to the mission. But like you said, the whole who gonna check me, boo? It works both ways. Just as you can say, y'all can't tell me nothing, and the organization or the individuals can also say, we don't seek to tell you anything. So that's when we part ways, and it is I've employed it, and it's reduced as people think that I'm all about conflict and arguing, but actually, since I really started developing and cultivating this self-exposure protocol and the expose, isolate, expel, I've had relatively the amount of friction I have within organizations or even with individuals has been greatly reduced, which allows me to focus more on productive actions as opposed to constantly trying to weed out these internal issues.
Right on. Just real quick, not to change the subject, but I don't want to lose sight of this question real quick. So I don't know much about this. Charles County is not my county, but it is trying to do and become what my county is. And it's the short of it is, and it's just it gives at least nominally a little more power to local council representatives, like what I'm trying to become, local board, village boards and stuff like that. It just takes a little bit of power away from some of the council's reps and stuff like that. But I'm still learning that. But essentially, Charles County is trying to catch up to what Howard and several other counties in this state are already doing. But it's yeah. Anyway, that's all I know.
That's booty. Y'all need to get a one-party machine state like Chicago politics. We know how to get down.
I mean,
y'all doing all this citizen, but nah, you need a dictatorial mayor and a bunch of subservient, weak-spined city council. You know, y'all know how to do government. Come to Chicago.
Yeah, we got some learning to do.
How local governance is done. One party.
Yeah.
We like the Chinese communist one-party dictatorship. It's beautiful here.
Well, apparently we're trying in a sense, we're trying to have that one-party dictator be developers, the United Developers Coalition.
Privatized government. Okay, yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Turkey in every pot, whatever what they used to tell people.
Right, that's it. A turkey in every pot.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, that's it.
So y'all getting it. Oh, y'all doing.
We're trying.
I'll never mind.
And I keep hearing that when they go to the Capitol in Annapolis, the discussion is that my county is the most corrupt in Maryland. Oh. So you know, I mean, this top 5 ranking of places to live in the country comes at a cost, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. You gotta get grimy. You want something good? You gotta get grimy.
How many former governors y'all got with felonies?
Oh no, we're not catching up. No, we're behind you. No, exactly. I defer to you.
Don't step to the shot. Don't step to Illy.
But since y'all arguing over Chicago and Maryland, it seems like both of y'all top leaders play basketball. So Barack used to hoop, and now Wes Moore challenged them cats the basketball game. So maybe they should have a basketball.
Obama's Hawaiian.
He's y'all organizer. That's y'all guy.
Hawaiian.
Don't try. You can't throw him out now. Don't be throwing him
Hawaiian.
out. Don't be throwing. Here we go.
I'm not trying to diss. I mean, Hawaii got hoods too. I've met some Hawaiian gangsters.
He had a Hawaiian shirt in your hood organizing. So chill out.
He had a Hawaiian shirt and a Chicago Bulls starter jacket.
Smoking some ports. He's smoking some ports with a Hawaiian shirt.
He had a grass skirt and some Jordans on.
Hey, but to draw one through line through the whole show this morning, I would want to say that in that chapter that you sent, well, in the book that you sent of Avi Chomsky that I was reading on the Black worker in Boston, she makes the point that for all that was happening with efforts at unionization, various even Black nationalist efforts, this, that, and the third, it was the public policy of the elite politicians that basically have ruined everything. So like even when there were moments of inter and even intra-racial organizing and unity, here comes public policy to redistrict this, rezone that, revalue this, move this, switch this, reinvest in this. So like if Black workers are coming up in this one sector of the economy, they just suck the investment out of that and put it over here and build it up over there. And all of a sudden the Black contractors and workers find themselves out again. So this point about this competitive political chicanery is real. And all I am really trying to say is that the people apparently who run my county are trying to catch up. Even if they can never, they are attempting to catch up to Diallo's Chicago and Illinois. They're looking at that as aspirational. They got, like people got Jordan on their wall or whatever as a kid, or LeBron. They got Drillinois posters on their wall. They got, what's his name? What was the last governor that got locked up for selling Obama's seat, or this, what's his name, Blagojevich or whatever. They got him on the wall.
He out now, so watch your mouth.
Yeah?
He's out.
He back.
He back on the streets. Be careful, Jared.
10 toes down.
Yeah. He got paroled, so be careful. Our governor is out. He did.
But I did watch one of his documentaries, and he did say, all I did is what everybody else been doing. I don't like, what was I
That's
supposed
a black
to do?
excuse. He white. You can't use that. That's appropriation. That's a black politician excuse.
He was Emineming. He was Emineming his political responses.
No, you can't say that.
That's what Kwame. That's
everybody else. You can't say I did what everybody else do when you are the everybody else that's doing it.
That's what Kwame Kilpatrick said. He said that in Detroit. I was just doing my job.
They all said, who's that Louisiana congressman that got locked up, Jefferson? They all say, oh, this is what everybody, even when I've been like, Obama's an international war criminal. Black people be coming to me, he ain't done nothing than all the other presidents did. So that's a black elite excuse. I don't want white folks. Leave us something, white people. Y'all taking our excuses. You took our resources, stop taking everything. But anyway, I no disrespect to Blagojevich. I know he's back on these streets, and I don't want no
You better
smoke.
be careful. You better be careful.
You started. You the one that brought his name. Like he gonna come Will Smith you. Keep my name.
That's hilarious. Anyway,
Jared a little bit too tall to get slapped like that. He a little bit too tall, and I don't know. Got a little military rustle in him.
Yeah, but you ain't got no Fed time. You ain't did no time.
Yeah, no. And let's we always
man.
Don't get it twisted. I was a glorified janitor in the Navy. There was nobody was out here, doing nobody. I was no Navy SEAL trained. Like I was sweeping, mopping, and painting. Nobody. Nobody was out here getting. And it was so cold at the Great Lakes during boot camp. They even shut down the arms training. I never even got my handgun training in boot camp. They were like, it's too cold. Just feed these fools and get them ready to sweep something. Oh, man, totally useless.
Man, what is it? It seems like a lot of black radicals go to the Navy. I think wasn't the irritated genie in the Navy, Naval Intelligence?
No, he was in Homeland Security.
Oh.
He worked for Homeland Security.
Oh, my bad.
And then him and Len Jeffries set me up at right down here in Baltimore. I got set up in Baltimore at that reverse hashtag talk.
Yeah, I remember that.
Genie waited to the end.
Gotcha.
And got up there and said,
stop with the agenda.
He said, are gay Africans Pan-African?
Yeah.
And I was like, yep. Got him. And then the video came
speaking
out.
Of which,
a couple days later, Dr. Balls for the gays. I was like,
I mean, your name is Ball.
Diallo, are you about to talk about that? You about to talk about that meme that's been going around?
But no, Ricky, I'm not aware of that. By the way, I'm not aware of that. By the way, Hoko Kami on social. Hoko Kami. She's asking about Howard County communists. I am not aware of that. I'm going to look into that though. Anyway,
no, but
sorry,
Diallo, you just said speaking of which. So I was about to say, are you about to talk about that picture that been floating around? It's talking about AI. It was a picture of. It said it was an African tribe, and like the men was.
The two. What about?
Like, I don't think so.
No, I was actually going to bring up the Uganda new death penalty for gays, and
wow,
that.
Diallo, how tall are you? You over 6'3", right?
I'm at 6'3" on 6'3", the dot.
Yeah,
I'm the run to the liver. My baby brother's 6'8".
Oh damn. Nah, so I'm a little shorter than that. Okay, wow. All right. Yeah.
How tall are you?
I'm about 6'2", 6. Maybe I might be down with my back. I might be down about 6'1" and a half. Or something
I didn't know. Oh, you a little dude. I can talk. All kind of crazy.
Damn.
Yeah,
so Jared,
I can get on here.
Now it can get even more crazy. Go ahead, Diallo. Yeah.
What?
I thought y'all about the same height. That's crazy.
Pull up.
The A is my middle name is, oh man, my parents set me up. My middle name is Arlen. No, I wish it was Arsenio. It's Arlen. A-R for Arnett and Len for Leonard. They did a combo name, and my middle name is longer than their damn relationship.
Listen,
and I'm stuck with the joint anyway.
Every time y'all start this height shit, these clowns in the chat always got to come for me. I'm 5'9". I know y'all instigating some shit.
Wait, tell him Diallo. He said 5'9" and a half. Tell him
Listen,
Diallo.
Right.
Every
short dude loves fractions. Every short dude always play with them fractions, don't they? They don't.
Let me show y'all something. Let me show y'all something y'all can't do.
You can't measure the locks. It don't stop
these clowns. I'm muting both. I'm muting both of them. Listen, so I'm 5'9", but if this raise up, I'm probably like 6 foot, right? So y'all can't even extend y'all height because y'all done, right? But for me, 5'9", and then this probably I could probably get about 5'11" out of this. So yeah, that's it. Now y'all back to the y'all. I'll unmute y'all now. You muted Diallo.
Wait.
Now I can unmute y'all. So okay.
It's all good because I think modern society has given us solutions. Jared and I can wear wigs, and they made platform heels for you. So living in modern society has provided us with solutions, so none of us have to feel inadequate.
So can y'all get a lace front for next week and all us have locks or no? What y'all
look, we're gonna give the trolls everything they want if we show up here in platforms and wigs. We're gonna give the trolls everything they want. All the gynocentrics we'd be torn to pieces after that joint, boy. I tell you, boy. It's rough out here, these YouTube streets. I like these
people are
better,
so
man.
Unpleasant and mean. I don't know where it comes from.
They unhappy, man. It's rough out here. Oppression breeds misery, and people lash out.
Yeah,
you out here. We sometimes get a little happy out here in these earn your liberation streets. And people like mad at that. They like, you can't be happy.
Yeah,
if I'm not happy. Anyway,
that's it. I'd like to imagine.
I did used to have hair.
It's miserable.
I did used to have hair. I did. It was beautiful too. It was beautiful.
I mean, pretty much. I'm Jupiter in this whole conversation. Y'all is abnormal.
Is a mutant.
Damn,
that's hard. My wife and both my sons are over 6 feet tall. That ain't right.
You just a mutant family.
You just my wife and both my sons are 6 feet or tall. So don't be like that.
Well, I married a 4'11" just to balance it out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
A little person. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's some pictures out there. There's some Instagram evidence. There's some receipts of my hair out there. It was beautiful. Oh, anyway. Fellas, so what you got coming up, man? I'm not rushing us out the door, but if we've exhausted the content, let's at least talk about what's coming up. Diallo, Geechee, what you working on? What's coming up on these next shows?
Well, the Bro Diallo show, of course, Mondays at Q4 Radio. If you're not in the city of Chicago, you can't get the local signal. You can, of course, listen to q4.org. That's my weekly radio broadcast. And did I tell y'all Skip Kuhn is now a permanent co-host of the Rational Radical show?
You did. I'm very excited about that. You did tell us that.
Able to share that. So he's gonna be there. So it'll be a Rational Radical and an Irrational Radical.
That's what's up. That's perfect. Looking forward to that.
I think we're gonna have to bring Skip Kuhn on here because you keep taking shots at the man and calling him irrational. So we're gonna have to, like you said, we're gonna have to bring him on here and defend himself.
Who said God created the universe?
I mean, hey, that's that man. That's that man logic. I mean, he could probably explain it to you.
And no, logic don't belong to nobody. You can't personalize truth and logic.
And I even like his song "Atheist," which when I first saw the track, I thought was going to be, him revealing himself as one, but it's shots at atheists, but it's a dope track though.
Yeah, I think I took that very personal. And wait till I drop my response track.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
I mean, let me get on the hook. Can I get on the hook?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Yeah. I remember the first time when because Skip and I, we used to rock a little bit, and then
I saw y'all interview in the car.
Yeah, I remember I told him I was an atheist. And he was like, and I think he was like, man, I only got room for one atheist in my life. I'm gonna rock with Diallo, leave Jared alone. There's too much atheism around here. But no,
I'm gonna work on deconverting the brother. He's a good brother, such a good brother. I think we need to bring him over to our side. Christianity don't know what to do with a brother like that, with a brother with a mind like that and talent like that. Christianity don't deserve him, so we should bring him back to our side.
He might convert you.
That would be funny. Wait till Diallo come rocking his Creflo Dollar cross.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to convert him. It's been almost a decade now, but I think I'm making headway.
I'm just running through my Instagram real quick to see if I can find my hair receipts. I think I had posted somewhere on there. I might have to come back to that.
You talking about when you used to look like Christopher Williams with the high top?
Man, Christopher Williams wish.
See, that's why you in witness protection now.
No, I'm just saying, like
that's why you in.
I saw a picture of Jared. I saw Jared with a picture.
You're knee high to a grasshopper.
He looked like he was in New Jack City.
People.
The man looked like he was in New Jack City. I was just trying to figure out if you got the New Jack City extra, but he did look like.
What happened to Christopher Williams? Because I feel like he owes the light skins some payback. I mean,
you didn't hear the story about him and Diddy.
Really?
Yeah, don't
he had a Diddy story.
Man. It's a dark place.
Oh,
wait.
Oh, really?
They like he had a child with Kim Porter too, right? Or that was somebody. No, that's Albie Shore. Never mind. Never mind.
That was my other. That's where's that Diallo? I mean, not Diallo. Kalonji made that Albie Shore Photoshop of me as Albie Shore. That joint was hilarious.
You look like a blend between them two back in the days, bro. I remember.
I used to like Albie Shore until after his stroke. I saw.
He had a stroke.
Picture. Yeah, he had a stroke, and they showed him in the hospital. He was in a coma for like several weeks.
Oh,
and they
really?
showed him in the hospital, and he had two attendants on each side of him. He had another attendant carrying his IV bag, and he's on a walker being held up by these medical professionals. And when he came out of the stroke, first thing he said is, I want to thank God for getting me through this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I found one real quick. Here's me with hair. Hold on, I'm gonna keep looking. Hold on.
Keep it real.
I was Kaepernicking before Kaepernick, boy. I tell you, boy.
It's the stress of the struggle. You can tell brothers that been really in the struggle on the front lines. You see what the stress do to you, and these cozy cats.
Here we go.
Tropics,
Here we
tell
go.
them, Diallo. Tell them.
They don't put, So
No,
I'm just saying.
Your hair is a measurement of your commitment.
Pride.
I'm gonna get white. I'm gonna get white hair anywhere. When I finally get a white hair, I ain't gonna get gray hair. So
all these fools with all that
you
hair.
ain't gonna get gray hair. How old are you? Like 62, 63?
Who, me?
Yeah, you over there.
Oh man, I'll be
because I went to your
I'll be 40 directly
birthday, and I think that was about what 3 years ago.
Oh, this was the other one.
Look at witness protection.
I will be 40 directly. I will be 40
drinking
directly.
coconut water for
Look
breakfast.
at how Kalonji did me on that one.
I
Look
do
at
drink
that.
coconut water for breakfast.
See? Living good.
You look like Sinbad. You look like Sinbad too, there though. Like I look like Sinbad's little cousin. That's Sinbad, other cousin.
There was some Sinbad in my look back in the day. I could see that. There was some Sinbad in my look, and I was so.
Not a different world.
He was like intentionally awkwardly fly in his dress. I was unintentionally uncool, and some with similar results in terms of I think how we ended up looking in terms of dress and whatnot.
Who was fly?
Who you
I'm
talking about?
I'm saying Sinbad. I'm named. That's not the word. What I was trying to say is that Sinbad had an intentional way of trying to dress.
Dude used to wear rayon silk patterned shirts with pleated baggy rayon silk patterned slacks. What do you mean, man?
He was Steve Harvey before Steve Harvey.
Listen,
exactly.
Don't get Diallo arguing about
fashion.
But all I meant by that is no, all I meant by that is he was being intentional in his look. I was unintentionally looking as a mess.
Don't
no,
like
I wasn't fly. I was definitely not fly. But I'm just saying he was intending to end up where he looked. I was unintentionally looking equally a mess. That's all I meant by that. That's what I meant by that. I wasn't trying to say he was actually fly. I just thought, but he was in his mind, he was fly.
Yeah, even in the 90s. But Shad, I don't want to be on record dissing Sinbad.
So I don't know if you can. I don't know if this will show up enough, but a little bit. If you could see back here, you could see a little bit of that I'll Be Sure Christopher Williams left back there. If you can see, I don't know if that shows up well in that picture. I'm just trying to find something. It's a little bit too far in the back there, but anyway,
I ain't got nothing to prove.
I do miss my hair. I do. I can't front. I do.
Not me, man. I'm freed up.
You can front that, Jared. Just get the frontal lobe. Get your lace front. You can front.
Speaking, by the way, I saw you mentioned Fat Joe again. Fat Joe was talking about this hip hop museum thing, and what is going on with his facial hair? Is that painted on? What is he doing? Like, what is it like a?
It's accented.
Is this like a new, like, I don't know, man. It's just so disturbing to me. I can't.
It's a lot of things going on with tattooing.
Yeah, is it like
Well, there's a number of techniques. I watched the YouTube tutorial as I prepare for my, makeover, and like the guy from New Edition has like the tattooed hairline. It's called micropigmentation. And micropigmentation is they put little, really small black dots that blend into whatever hair follicles are still existing, and they can give you a beautiful goatee, lined up beard, or a hairline. It's called micropigmentation. Yeah, and don't be ashamed. Don't act like you're curious when you want to get it. It is no longer considered shameful for men to engage in self-care and care about our appearance and grooming. This ain't the brogue iron overall time of our uncles and grandfathers. This is modern era. So get your hair did, get your hairline, get your beard, get your nails. You could do it too, brother.
I just feel
you don't have to hide behind pretending to be curious about Fat Joe.
No, we don't gotta just go ahead. We don't have to do the Beijing no more. The little spray head that wash as soon as you take a shower. You don't have to do that no more. We can get
but what I'm saying is the stigma is gone. We are liberated. We are free as men. Don't be toxic. Be liberated. Take care of yourself. Love thyself. So if you come on here tomorrow with a lineup and a new hairline, I won't judge you.
but the technology hasn't advanced to actual like afros and flat tops.
They actually do have a surgical procedure
to get an afro.
They can extract skin from the nape of your neck, and implant it on the top of your head, and that will grow. I forgot the formal name for it, but yeah, there is a surgical procedure.
You telling me you're gonna remove skin from one place with hair?
Yes.
And put it hair, and it's gonna grow hair.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't
absolutely.
know. I want to see the science.
Yep. It happens. I know some people who've had that done. So baldness is a choice at this juncture. There is a cure.
Baldness like slavery is a choice.
Or like I said, they do the men lace fronts. You can do that.
That too. There are options. It's a choice. I'm just saying we got to keep Jared's self-esteem up so he can continue.
his work.
Anyway,
I
Geechee, what?
I just realized this show can go any damn where. You
can get pectorals. You can get pectoral implants. There's options out there. You to be the best version of yourself.
So I can go buy the 300 body. I can get the 300 spray can tan or whatever.
You can get the hairline, the beard, micropigmentation, pectoral implants, abdominal implants, synth oil for your biceps.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. You get all that done. You get on the phone, tell your wife, "Yo, me not come home." You know, I'm for the street. You don't even have to play family man and father anymore. You can take it back to the streets.
Hey, that coldest line, that white man said, "Hey, baby, put your mom on the phone." I'm not coming
that
home.
is funny, right? I ain't coming home no more.
Me not come home.
He done bought a 6-pack
Bless
and
up.
everything. Let's get it. Washboard abs. Let's go.
I bought washboard abs and
there.
hair. Wow. Okay. I might have to look into
it
this.
is my mission in life to lift up my brothers. So whatever I got to do.
I might have to look into this right quick. Come back next week, brand new.
Yeah.
Use some of that Freedom Scholar money, man.
Yeah, man.
Look that dollar over there.
That HBCU bank account, you know. Go ahead and live a little. You didn't put in the work. Live a little. Like I said, take care of yourself. You've been taking care of everybody else. Now it's time to focus on yourself.
Hey, look, hey, let's shout out to the chat because we diversifying. Normally you hear these brothers arguing and fighting, and now you hear Diallo, the motivational speaker, uplifting that brother, giving that man some conscious wisdom.
That's all I do. That's all I live.
Self-care rituals.
That's all he does.
Diallo, all you need is some sage. You got some sage over there. Like the sage, man. You just clean the whole
I
vibe
got some Nog Champa incense.
Oh, wow.
You know. And my son had a science, chemistry science set, and I went in there and took the crystals out of that. So I got some crystals and some incense. I don't have any sage. You know, so but you know, I'm getting there. Getting my Badu on.
Anyway, Geechee, did you tell us what you got coming up? Did we get to that?
No, I ain't got nothing coming up per se, but I'm gonna inbox y'all because, like I told you, I wanted you to participate in the Does Justice Serve panels? Like you could do one and then we get Diallo to do one, but I gotta force Diallo to watch the series. But
I'm down. Whatever.
Yeah, I'll get you the dates for the first one.
Okay. Yeah. All right, good people. Big shout out to Avi Chomsky. Thanks to the comrades here, to the remixers and all the people who will see and hear this later. Thank you all for coming through. Peace, be willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll catch you next time right here on Earn Your Liberation. Next Friday, same place. Peace, everybody. Catch you later. Take care.